All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the sessions here at Edge so far. My name is Jennifer Guo, and I lead our global services team here at MindBridge. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Greg Cole from UiPath as our next Edge speaker. Greg has been a wonderful partner to us and has been instrumental in UiPath's adoption of MindBridge over this past year. I'm so excited for him to share his firsthand experience of the value that UiPath sees in MindBridge, how our technology has transformed the way that they view their business, and the exciting new projects that we're working on together. Greg is a CPA and holds several NetSuite certifications in addition to being a certified Scrum Master. He began his career in public accounting and went on to become a technology and management consultant focused on finance transformation services, as well as NetSuite and ASC 606 implementations. And now at UiPath, Greg's responsible for partnering with key internal finance stakeholders to drive automation and enhancements in existing systems, as well as implementing systems controls to ensure SOX compliance. So without further ado, Greg Cole, everyone.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'm excited to have the opportunity for MindBridge to talk today and get to tell you all about our journey so far. So the agenda for today is going to be talking about what we've done already with MindBridge and how we came about using it as a software here at UiPath, what we're currently working on projects-wise with MindBridge, and then what the future will likely look like here at UiPath. So again, just to introduce myself, my name is Greg Cole. I'm Principal Business Analyst here at UiPath. And like Jen said, I had a typical start to my career. I went to Virginia Tech, went down your typical accounting route. I got my master's degree in audit, got my CPA, and went to work for a public accounting firm in Richmond, Virginia. And I loved working for the company, but I realized that audit wasn't quite it for me. I apologize to any auditors on the call, but I realized I did love accounting. And I actually met my wife at that time. So I like to say we compromised and moved to her hometown here in the Philly area. And that's when I got a chance to work in technology and management consulting. And so during that time, for about 5 years, I was able to work with NetSuite specifically as an ERP, but several different finance transformation projects. And during that time is when I got involved with UiPath as a consultant. And so I came on to UiPath when ASC 606 came about and helped with the finance transformation project to implement NetSuite ARM. But from beyond there, now I've joined the company. I am able to work on several different finance systems and was a big advocate for MindBridge when it came about. For those of you that don't know, this will be part of the presentation. UiPath is the leading RPA, so Robotic Process Automation company in the industry. I like to say my friends always think I'm talking about physical robots in like a factory. It's not physical robots. It is software robots that can be run either attended or on an unattended basis. And it's typically used in a B2B fashion by other companies. And it really truly is a industry agnostic platform that we have here. And I'll be explaining how we're using RPA and MindBridge to leverage our own products during this. So past. The way I was introduced to MindBridge, I actually have a friend, a very close friend from college who's actually in sales at MindBridge. And over a year ago, he knew I was a CPA. He had reached out and said, hey, you should come take a look at MindBridge. Give us your thoughts on it. And so I got a call with him and one of the pre-sales engineers. And we walked through in detail what MindBridge looked like. And at first, I thought it was a really great tool. With my background in audit, I knew it could be a great tool for auditors and also saw some value within the company. But at the time, I was thinking more of an internal audit approach. However, several months later, I was on a call with my director at the time here at UiPath, and he had mentioned to me, hey, our CIO is looking for a tool like he had when he was a partner at Deloitte that can help him just gain additional assurance over the financial statements before he is able to look in this tool and get a higher level of assurance, right? And that's one of the tools that's using your typical statistical methods and normal methods of looking at anomalies within the data. And I said, hey, I actually know this company, MindBridge. We should look at their product. So we got on a call with our SVP of Finance and my director. And within 5 minutes of looking at the product, I got a Slack from our SVP saying, we need this. So the rest is history. We now are operating MindBridge. We've been on the product. We started the implementation around June 2022. And we're now live for several of our entities. And we're starting to use it within the company. And so why MindBridge? Why do we choose the tool beyond what I just said? So it's going to be giving our controlling team a way to go beyond just Microsoft Excel. So today we're using Excel that's pulling data from our NetSuite and Hyperion systems, which we use for consolidation, and we're using it for your basic stuff. So period over period analytics and explaining those differences, pulling the data down in detail from NetSuite and searching for things like manual journal entries, unusual account combinations, cash entries, things that we can think of, the known knowns that we're looking for, right? But even with these small amount of things that we're looking for, that can take our team hours and hours to look at. And with MindBridge, we're able to look at that and beyond with the capabilities that are offered by machine learning and AI to look at our financials from a different perspective, right? So we can look at the rare flows that are happening within our accounts specific to our detail. And then also, unusual one-time transactions, and then truly trying to drill down on those anomalies that we need to make sure we have evidence for. Again, additional assurance for our CAO. As I mentioned, he was a former Big Four partner. He's signing off on the financial statements, and he wanted a way to look at the financials as a whole to truly understand where our risk lies within the financials. It's a lot to pull down. Millions, quite literally millions of rows of data that we go through every period here at UiPath and try and drill down on specific transactions we need to look at. And MindBridge is really giving us that capability. And he's able to use things like Benford's Law, which I know he would use within his old platform at the Big Four firm. But again, using that machine learning is a really cool thing. We love technology here at UiPath, and we think that is great for being able to really drill down into what the true anomalies are. One thing that I would say is more unique to us and goes beyond the scope of what some people would typically use MindBridge for is identifying areas of automation for us. So today at UiPath, we already have 300 plus automations just in our finance team. So that's creating journal entries for us, integrations with other systems, validating data. That's what we're using our robots for. And so we're actually able to use this tool to review the transactions that are being posted by those robots and other integrations to determine what is being automated is actually in compliance and is performing how we need it to perform. And then also identifying areas of risk that we may not have known about or known about but didn't know where potential errors could be occurring, and leveraging our own software and our own bots to help with those automations and create new automations for our team to severely reduce or eliminate that risk. And just as an example there, we could be seeing, journal entries, for example, that keep popping up as high risk transactions each period. So we can look to see who's creating those journal entries, who's approving those journal entries, and who's working with those to help to go to them and say, hey, we know you're making these journal entries. You're likely using Excel. Do you have an automation around that to ensure that things like your formulas are correct in Excel, you're pulling the correct data every time? And even something as simple as importing it to NetSuite could always go wrong if you're doing it manually. You may map a field incorrectly, and it just exposes some risks that we want to eliminate here. And then finally, additional monitoring over high risk areas. So we did go public in April of 2021, and we did just go through and are currently finalizing our SOX implementation here. And that puts even more scrutiny on us as a company. Not that we're necessarily using this as a SOX control per se, but it's just giving us that additional assurance that we're covering all the areas that we need to cover, and allowing us to monitor our financial statements as detailed as they are at a very granular level. So yeah, that's why we're using MindBridge. So first thing I wanted to walk through was the GL analysis implementation here at UiPath. I just want to start off by saying I was in consulting for 7+ years. I've worked with clients myself, and I've also worked with other consulting and professional services companies here at UiPath. And working with the MindBridge team was incredible. I mean, they were very punctual. They followed up on every meeting that we were in with a summary of the minutes. And even more important, I know people I work with can probably say, I'm working on a few things at once, we'll say. So they were really good at keeping me in line and making sure I was getting them the data they needed to make sure that we kept the project moving forward and we stayed on a good timeline. And we were able to get MindBridge, even with a quarter close in the middle, summer vacations, up and running in just under a few months. So first thing that we had to do was our system setup. So our account grouping configuration. So we went beyond just using our standard chart of accounts. What we wanted to do was be able to look at our financials at the level that we're reporting in our 10K, right? And so for that, we're using HFM for our account groupings, which takes things like our accounts and also our cost centers and groups them together to deliver parts of the financial statements, like our cost of revenue and our expenses. So what I was able to work with the MindBridge team to do was take that data, build some custom fields that are stored in our NetSuite environment, and build a safe search that is then pulling all of that data for us. And we can simply take that along with the columns that we need, I'll talk about in a second, to then do our load into MindBridge. The fields and columns. So this was big for us, determining what do we want to look at just beyond our entries and the data that we get from there, the dates, the debits, the credits, the accounts. So we're pulling in data like our users that are making and approving those entries or the transactions. Like I said, we're able to then pull in those users, which are our bots, to be able to see what they're doing. And thankfully, all of our bots transactions were rated as a low risk. So that was great. And then understanding, using that to understand, like I said, where our users are making these manual entries and seeing where we can create automations beyond there. Also, I'd mentioned that I got involved with UiPath back when ASC 606 came about. And ASC 606 really hit the technology industry, by storm, for those of you that are in the industry. And for us, it was even more so because we do sell SaaS licenses, but we also still sell a majority of on-prem and hybrid models, which means that we have very complicated revenue recognition. And so being able to look at the revenue that's happening at a more granular level and seeing where the risk lies within there has been very helpful for us and will be very helpful going forward. With that, I was able to, now I'm able, after doing all this, to pull that data. The longest time is honestly just downloading the data, which I'll get to a little later, and how we're going to increase the efficiency there. But now that we have this, it's all set up, and for each entity, I just need to pull down the data and import it, and it's very hands-off from there. And then finally, control point setup. So I don't really see this as a one-time thing. It's a very iterative process, in my opinion. So it's not really a set it and forget it thing for us. We're going through, and I even sat down with our CIO and SVP of finance on Monday, and we were going through literally line by line within the control points and trying to figure out what is the most meaningful control points for us for what we're trying to do. And we're adjusting it and running the analysis and figuring out what the best setup is going to be for us now. But what's good for us now may not be good for us in a few months. So really truly understanding those control points and how we can pull the data correctly to trigger those is going to be a process for us going forward, but I think we're in a good place right now. And then also with those control points, and that's what I'm going to talk about with this engagement setup. This is where we hit a little bit of a stumble during the implementation. UiPath is truly a global company. We actually started in Romania and have most of our operations still in Romania. So we are a company that actually started global and then came to the US. And more than half of our operations are still outside of the US, and half our revenue is still outside of the US, if you look at our financials. So what that gives to us is we have over 45 entities within our NetSuite environment, probably about 30 different currencies or so. And so I tried to take a big chunk at first and load our entire data set into MindBridge. But with the way NetSuite calculates things like CTA, it was giving us some headaches trying to figure out the best way to do that, which we eventually did. So we're able to look at the full company at once. But then we realized with things like Benford's Law, for example, which requires naturally occurring numbers, it might make sense to also run it at the individual entity level as well. So right now we're running MindBridge for basically 3 different engagements, consolidated to look at the entire company, but then also at the individual entity level to be able to look at our financials at that normal transactional currency without skewing the data by translating it at month-end rates. So the present time here at UiPath. So what are we doing right now? What does MindBridge look like at UiPath today? So we're currently in the process of operationalizing it. Like I said, we actually started with that top-down approach and have been working with the CAO and SVP of Finance to figure out how we can best position this to our teams. And so with our controlling team, we can work on starting to transfer some of that Excel work that they're doing, to identify these anomalies into MindBridge to save time there. That will be a huge time effort savings. And then also they'll be able to use this, for example, as part of SOX, we just came up with a new approval process for our journal entries. And so what they can now do with MindBridge is look at the types of journal entries that are happening from a high level, understanding the risk, and then taking those types of automations and approvals we're doing and skewing them towards what we really need to be paying attention on, where we need those additional approvals to lower our risk. So beyond just kind of looking at it in total and trying to guess where our highest risk is. And then also not just our controlling team, our accounting team will be able to use it to review the transactions that are being posted to our ledger and trying to find those unknown risks that we already have in controls in place for, but where may we need some additional controls and where we may, have low risk areas that we might be having too much control in, that where we can kind of back down a little bit. Also, my team here in finance systems, I know we just had a meeting today as a team to go through the data, and we actually see a huge value for this ourselves. So we work directly with our internal audit team from an audit perspective to implement these SOX controls that we have to be doing. So we can use this to identify those high risk areas and make suggestions to our internal audit team where we need to be putting those controls and work with them on the data that we're seeing. And then a big thing for us is we're admins across all of our systems, specifically NetSuite, which is our largest software, where we're using it as our ERP, and that's where all of our data that ultimately populates our financial statements resides. And as admins, we have our ITGC controls for change management, but we also have admin access and can, and have those rights to be able to post to the ledger. So what we're able to use it for is to look where we're making, if we are posting to the ledger, and then determining if we do have, for example, a ticket in for that posting that happened. So it can be used to monitor our activities within the systems as well, beyond just the normal activity you see. And then working with our CIO, it's going to give him a dashboard to look at all of our financials at a single time. and give him the highest risk transactions that he needs to focus in on, and just additional monitoring of those high risk areas. But what we're working now with MindBridge on is, okay, we have all this data we pulled into MindBridge. It's giving us all these high risk transactions, some of which we definitely know of, debt conversions and things like that. But how do we take that data? Maybe it's leveraging the API, which we'll talk about later, into a data warehouse, and really refining it to understand where our truly unexpected anomalies may be. So that's how we're using it today, and I see the options in the future as very plentiful of where we can use it. So the other thing we're doing today with MindBridge, which honestly gets me really excited. I'm a nerd at heart, and I love technologies, as well as our SP of Finance we're working with. And we're working with a pilot right now for the configurable ledger analysis. So this goes beyond just the GL analysis, the AP and AR analysis, and allows us to truly provide our own data and do some process mining over over the data, and making sure that we're aligned and identify areas for improvement there. And so this pilot is actually focusing on one of our key integrations here at UiPath. We use Salesforce.com as our opportunity and lead management system. And then when the opportunity is closed on book, we're using our own software to integrate that data into NetSuite as sales orders and then complete the billing. And so, as I had mentioned, you'll keep hearing this is a theme, revenue is huge for us, making sure that's correct. And part of that is making sure that the data we're getting from Salesforce, which is the system of record for closed won booked opportunities, is getting correctly translated into the system, right? So some things that we're doing, we've pulled data sets down from Salesforce, we've pulled data sets down from NetSuite, and we've given them to the MindBridge data scientists. And they're using some very cool technologies beyond the scope of what I could even, I could try to describe it, but even attempt to describe, to use this data to give us some meaningful output. And so what we're doing is a few things. We're doing TCV matching. So total contract value, again, with 606, we have to allocate that total contract price, which is essentially coming from our closed won book opportunities, and validating that that is getting captured to the penny within NetSuite, and we're not having any leakage on our revenue, right? And so the first thing that this tool is going to do is validate, yes, what you're getting from Salesforce, everything that's closed won book in Salesforce is matching exactly what's being booked as a sales order in NetSuite, and where do any anomalies within that lie. Schedule versus actual invoicing. This sounds like something that should be very easy to get out of NetSuite, but one of my colleagues, I think is on this call, would tell you it's not the easiest thing. We have to pull several reports and combine them today in order to report on this. We have in Salesforce what our billing segments are. So what we're going to be billing that opportunity for in an annual billing fashion. And then we're pulling that into NetSuite and basically recreating that billing schedule in NetSuite. And so one of the things we're going to be doing is matching those billing segments versus the billing schedules in NetSuite, making sure that they match based on the date that we're going to be invoicing, and make sure that they match in the amount that we're going to be invoicing on that date. And then also taking that a step further, validating that the actual invoicing that's happening is matching that billing schedule, and giving us any anomalies that may lie within there to determine why a bill may be overdue, why a bill may be issued early, to be able to detect that before it's detected potentially in an audit or wherever it may be happening. Revenue recognition by contract analysis. So we have our standard rules set up for revenue recognition. We have all of our revenue accountants reviewing each contract over a materiality threshold each period. And so what we want to be able to use this tool for is to look at that revenue recognition, ensuring it aligns in total once we're done with the TCV that's coming out of our Salesforce account, but also validating that it makes sense from a higher level. For example, we recognize half of our licenses up front for term licenses. So looking at the revenue that's happening on a contract and validating that it's following that data set just at the contract level and overall level for us will be great assurance for us. And then finally, data integrity amongst the systems. This gets me very excited, right? We do have the integration, but as many of you all know, sometimes with integrations, with unique use cases, right, where maybe it's a one-off contract that we're signing, right? Validating that, okay, the fields did pull correctly from Salesforce. And then if a field did change by one of the billing specialists that's working on the sales order, identifying where that data did change and where the manual overrides happened, and moving and determining why that was made, and then also validating that it was correctly changed. So future, what does the future look like for us here at UiPath? So today we have currently implemented the GL analysis portion of MindBridge. We are, like I said, working on that configurable ledger analysis pilot, which is very exciting for us. But we want to go beyond that. We want to be able to implement the AR analysis feature, the AP analysis feature, to do some additional analysis over the granular level details there. So payment terms, making sure cash application is correct, taking it that step further. And again, this is just like any business. This is a big part of our business. We want to make sure it's right. So it just gives us that additional assurance. Using CLA with our other business processes. So a big one right now is, Salesforce.com to NetSuite, but we also use Coupa for our procurement. So we could use it to validate that vendor bills are coming over correctly from our Coupa system and integrating correctly into NetSuite, and that the bill is being paid on time, right? We could use it with our Concur integration, make sure that things are not being duplicated for expense reports, making sure that our employees are being paid on time. And then also beyond just the transactional flow, but being able to use it for things like vendor management, right? Validating the data between NetSuite and Coupa is correct. Customer management, validating that the data between Salesforce, which is our system of record for customers, and our NetSuite environment is correct. Things like addresses and really affect things like our tax calculation, right? So making sure and validating that that's coming over correctly is really big for us. Expanding use amongst our teams. So I'd mentioned that our finance system team's using it, our CAO and SVP of finance are using it, and we're also going to be using it with our controlling and our accounting teams. But we could also be potentially using it in a more traditional sense with our internal audit team, and then also determining how we can potentially use this as more of a controls process and for our look backs, and leverage it more amongst other teams. Leveraging our own products with MindBridge. We're partnering with MindBridge, and we think it's everything that we're doing today is great, but seeing how we can use our own products. So for example, pulling the data out of NetSuite takes a long time for me. I think the largest part of the implementation was it would take me hours and hours just to pull down a year of data and then combine it just because of the volume. So using our robots to pull that data for us, and using the API in MindBridge that now is available to import that data and do the steps within the analysis in the data part of the MindBridge tool will be big to automate that for us. So I'm not spending time just doing day-to-day activities, really just using it for what we want to be using it for. And then also products like document understanding could be something we could be doing in the future, which could be very exciting for us. Reading documents, taking data off those documents and matching it to what's in our system could be a very good use of our software along with MindBridge. And then finally, using the MindBridge API, this gets me more excited. So like I said, the data pulls and everything I'm doing today are taking a long time. So automating those data pulls and doing it automatically, and maybe even more on a more frequent basis into our MindBridge account could be great for us. But then also taking that data, leveraging the API into a data warehouse so that we can, slice and dice it in an even more granular fashion and determine what is truly posing a risk for us is something we can see ourselves using it for in the future. So that being said, I'm open to any questions you all may have. Happy to answer any questions and or respond to any comments you all may have. And I appreciate you taking the time today. All right, so I see a question coming through here. Are there any needs that you have on how to visualize data with RPA and just the automation concept? So we're seeing ourselves leverage MindBridge to identify where the risks are in terms of where there could be areas for automation. But within UiPath itself, we do have tools available like our task capture tool and our process mining tool to actually look at the process that's happening and determine whether or not it can be automated. And even if the entire process cannot be automated with our products, we do have the concept of the unattended robot, which can at least automate part of the process with some manual intervention and speed up the process by automating that piece that can be automated and then leaving the part where judgment's required up to the user. So I hope that helps answer your question. What's been the biggest challenge with the internal communication of the project's value? So that's a great question. I think today, with our controlling and accounting teams, they have their processes that they're already doing today. We're SOX compliant, and they're used to doing what they're doing on a month-end basis. So I think the challenge is going to be showing them that we can use this tool to take some of what they're doing today and add even more value. But what I think we need to be able to do before we do that is really show them where the tool has given us value and show them areas of high risk that they may not have identified before, and transactions with high risk that they may not have identified in their standard processes, to really show them the value of this project. And then also, I think the big thing is with our integrations. Like I said, with that CLA project, today we're having a very hard time determining what manual changes, if there have been any manual changes between systems. NetSuite logs a lot of notes in the system notes naturally for audit purposes. But those are very, a user could save a record and it stores 30 different notes just from that one save, right? So determining where, without having to sift through, thousands and thousands of rows of data, if we can show our teams, hey, we don't need to do that anymore, and we can leverage MindBridge to determine where those changes are for us without having to run these reports and do the manipulation ourselves, I think that's where we can really show the project value. It's a good question. It looks like we got one more question. How is the labor market for talent affecting your finance teams? It seems tough right now. Yeah, I mean, it is tough. I see it within finance systems as well. Finding the talent we need on our teams is very hard. I think the market has changed quite a bit over the past couple of years. I mean, I know I left consulting. People are leaving consulting in droves to go out to these private and public companies to work. But that's where we can really leverage our tool. I mean, we have on our billing team where we just crossed over $1 billion in ARR, and we have several different contracts, and we have, I think, just under 8 people on our billing team doing all the invoicing for us. And that's made possible by using our automations to do some of those repetitive tasks for us, so that we can operate on more of a slim team and really get value of our employees. And then we have another one here. How is your use of MindBridge change your interaction with info provided to your external auditors? So today with our external auditors, I mean, we're pulling several reports from NetSuite to pull system changes, and that's very hard for us from at least from a finance system perspective. And so what I'm hoping to get out of this CLA analysis is the ability to run a report that does have to work for me by eliminating I guess false positives within the data, and then also reducing the time I need to spend on that and can focus on more of operational tasks. But then also where I think it's really going to start paying off, again, we've only been using it for a few months, but we know that auditors are using similar type tools to look at our data. So honestly, the best way to reduce your work is being prepared. So understanding where those high risk transactions are going to be that we know that they're going to be asking about, we'll be ready for it beyond just what we're doing today. And I think that's really going to start paying off here shortly as we implement the tool and spread it more throughout the organization. Okay. I think those are the questions. Again, thank you everyone for giving me the time to speak today, and I really appreciate you all joining. And I hope you have the great rest of your day. Like I said, my email's on the screen right now. If you have any more questions for me after the session, and also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there, pretty active, and happy to connect and chat more if you have any questions specific to your business. And again, thank you very much.